So this is where we left in the last slide, last session rather. I had just shown you a typical picture of the enterprise network, and before this, we were sitting on devices and components of networks and all that stuff. So we have done this, and then we did all these devices components, and then we ended up this. So while our objective is to cover topics like campus networks and data centers and their components and some organizations who manufacture and all that, there are a few things that we have missed, which we will cover. Okay, Sahil will join in 2 minutes. Okay, no problem. So there are a few things that we will cover, which we have probably missed or we may ignore most of the times. But I just thought I'll go through them again. Some of them are known and some of them are heard but not understood completely. So I'll start with the basic one. This is something which most of us know, but still I am trying to explain again. Difference between internet, intranet and extranet. So first of all, internet. We all know internet. It is accessible by anybody, anywhere. It just needs to connect to the internet again, which is also known as the network of networks. Okay. So and intranet is something which is within the company. Nobody from outside can access it. That is intranet. And to use intranet between locations is what we use as something called as VPN, which we had discussed some time back, a virtual private network, also known as a private tunnel that we create between two locations so that the two locations can connect to their own intranet. Intranet is not accessible by internet at all. And then the third thing is extranet. Extranet is something which is by the company, which belongs to the company, but which is also used by its respective suppliers or partners or customers. For example, IHRMS tool or an app which is built by us, which is our product, but it is used by some companies like, say, for example, Samsung, say Vodafone, say ECI Telecom. Some of our customers use this using some secure ways of username, password, or firewalls, or some policies, or whatever. There are different ways of securing it, but something which belongs to an organization which they provide access according to needs and specifications and customizations to specific suppliers or customers or partners. That is extranet. Again, extranet can be accessed via the internet, but still it is private. It is not public. Internet is public. Intranet is private. An extranet is a combination of private and public. Technically, it is still private. We may use internet to reach the other side, but again, using a secure tunnel, also known as a VPN. So these are terms internet and intranet are terms that you would have heard many times in your careers or in your lifetimes, but extranet, some people might not have heard. I'm just explaining what extranet is between internet and internet. Okay? I will not take a pause because it was very simple. So I'll continue with the next slide. And the next slide talks about virtualization. So as I said, before I jump into data centers and campus networks, I wanted to explain what virtualization is. We will also talk about something called cloud computing. So what is virtualization? In simple English, using software to intelligently use hardware. This is virtualization in very, very, very simple English or simple layman terms. If anybody asks, what is virtualization? Using software to use or maybe reuse or intelligently use hardware. One of the basics or the primitive versions or the earlier versions of virtualization is also hard disk partitioning. Many of us have used desktops and laptops in our lives, and we have seen that some people partition their hard disks. Most of our laptops have C drive and D drive and E drive. Basically, it is one single hard drive inside your laptop desktop, but you have partitioned into 2-3 pieces, C drive and a D drive. That is called partitioning, of course, but it is a primitive form of virtualization. When I show the next pictures in this slide, then you will understand a little bit more. However, coming, the next level after partitioning of hard disks also became partitioning of OS, operating systems. For example, in a Windows laptop, you use half of the laptop for Windows OS and half of it for Linux OS or any other new type of operating systems that you want to use. So from again, if you see the hard disk is the same, or the memory is the same, you have used some sort of software, some sort of configuration to use it intelligently into C drive, D drive, E drive, or a Windows OS and Linux OS or something like that. So these are primitive forms of, or the earlier forms of virtualization, which we call them as partitioning. It is also an earlier form of virtualization. Today, what we define virtualization, again, like we used software to intelligently use hardware into C drive, D drive, and E drive, we are going to do something similar, but in an advanced way. Okay. This is our normal desktop. Ignore the words below Ubuntu and all that. They are all operating systems. Doesn't matter. This is a simple desktop, and we know a desktop has input processing and output units. So the keyboard is input, the CPU is processing, and the monitor is output. There are other forms of input output also. So, but there are other things also which you can see that it has a processor which is inside the CPU. It has a memory which is in the name of a hard disk. Hard disk is below. Memory is like the RAM that we use, which is in process all the time. DVD drives, floppy disk drives in olden days, USB drives. Network adapters are something like the LAN ports where we connect our LAN cables, USB ports where we connect our USB, either a hard disk or pen drives or even some other devices. So these are the types of hardware of let's say a desktop. Like when I said virtualization is using software to intelligently use hardware, we add some sort of a configuration or some sort of a software, and we can reconfigure this one machine to look like 3 machines. Okay, in simple words, it had 1 CPU, it had 6 GB of RAM, and it had 30 GB of hard disk. Using this software, what you've done is you've segregated into two CPUs. RAMs has been segregated, and this 30 GB hard disk has been segregated into 3 hard disks of 10 GB each. In simple words, this is virtualization. Now there are different types of virtualizations which I'm not going to explain further, like network virtualization, virtualized servers, virtualized storage, virtualized nodes, so many things. We will not talk about this. Basic concept of virtualization is using software intelligently. That's it. We will stick with that, and now we'll move beyond virtualization. I'll again take a pause. I don't have too many slides. I have 6-7 slides. So I'll take a pause and I'll ask if anybody has any questions. Or if you are okay to go ahead and give me some yeses, please. Okay, sir. You got it, sir. Okay. All right. So now we move into the other topic that we have not done is cloud computing. What is cloud computing? The half of the world, probably the whole world, is today talking about cloud. And the only thing that we have spoken about cloud is Alibaba Cloud, Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud. These are the words, or Microsoft Azure Cloud. Okay, hope this software is very typical. Yes, very typical. Just to tell you, this software, the 2 biggest companies in the world that make this software are Red Hat and VMware. While Microsoft also does, Google also does, but Red Hat and VMware are virtualization experts. They started this trend, and they are the 2 largest companies in this virtualization software. Okay, so we'll move. Anyway, coming back to cloud computing. So, like I said, Alibaba Cloud, Azure Cloud, Amazon Cloud, Amazon Web Services Cloud, AWS Cloud, and all this. What is cloud computing? There are two simple lines that define cloud computing. One, it's an outsourcing model. We do manpower outsourcing. Cloud computing is equal to something similar to that. It is, what kind of outsourcing it is? It is a vendor provided network setup, which could outsource our setup into some other location. For example, there are no more words in this slide. There's just one picture which will give you a lot of clarity. Let's say this is our Delhi office. Let's say this is our Mumbai office. We all use Wi-Fi to connect to some internet provider. It can be Airtel, it can be Reliance Jio, it can be Vodafone or Hathway, or I don't know, whichever internet provider. But let's say you're using your iHRMS app, or our own Dolly Bar, the apps that we use, Info Portal. Where are they hosted, or where are they right now working? They are right now hosted in, say, probably HostGator, which probably Rajiv can give clarification. HostGator is the cloud service that we are using, or it could be Alibaba Cloud or Amazon Cloud, any other cloud. So that cloud provider, let's call it AWS here, Amazon Web Services. Yes, HostGator. Okay, excellent. So I'm taking AWS as an example. So the service that they have given us is either we most of the time use infrastructure as a service or software as a service. Now, if our info portal, or where we put our attendances and our iHRMS, is probably installed in HostGator or AWS somewhere, and all of us as users, we use the internet to reach to that cloud and then go to that software application. Let's say our iHRMS application on our mobile phones, Android or iOS phones, Apple phones. So probably they would have given this service something called a software as a service, where we would have hosted our application in that cloud, or we could have taken our own office. Rather than having a server storage in our office, we would have used their server storage and run our own iHRMS over there. Rajiv, can I ask what we are using? We are using SaaS or IaaS. Can you clarify? Rajiv? Okay, IaaS and virtual server. Okay, all right, understood. So basically what we have done is, instead of having a server storage here, we have actually taken a virtual server storage here and hosted our applications there. And it also means that we would have not just put our iHRMS, but we would have put our Dolly Bar, our iHRMS, and in a secure way even our Tally. Or if not Tally, we would have probably created a secure tunnel between our locations, or using the cloud or whatever it is for using Tally. Rajiv, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, excellent. So again, okay, one more message. Except Tally all on cloud, Tally using VPN. Okay, all right, understood. That's why I was drawing a line between two locations where we don't use cloud. Understood. All right, so different types of services cloud companies provide. We will not go deep. In simple words, cloud computing means it's an outsourcing model. Instead of having a server, storage, and all that in your office, I'll go back one slide and I'll show you something. This will give you a little bit more clarity. So imagine this is a cloud. Cloud uses a lot of virtualization. This is the cloud. This is used by a company called Indovision. Because the cloud guy is using either a VMware or a Red Hat or any kind of software here to break it into multiple machines. This is used by Indovision. This is used by XYZ company. This is used by ABC company. So, which means cloud uses a lot of virtualization. That's when they can use one server in their premises to virtually divide it into n number of servers and give it as a service to different companies like ours. Now I'll come back to this. I'll take a pause again on cloud computing and see if I have any questions from anyone. Any questions, guys, or can we move ahead? Give me some yeses if I can move ahead. If you have a question, feel free to ask. Okay, good. We can move. All right. Okay. So now that we have understood what an intranet, internet, and extranet is, and what is virtualization, what is cloud computing, how virtualization is used, in cloud computing, where you have some sort of a a server here which is logically partitioned. One is given to Indovision, one is given to XYZ, one is given to ABC, and any companies. So virtualization is a big part of cloud computing. Okay, so now we'll before I jump into data centers and campus networks, we will also talk about the OEMs, the companies that we work with, and which category they fall in. Okay, there's a very complicated slide. Let me check if Vinay is part of the call. Yes, Vinay. So Vinay, the slide that you had given me, I have done a lot of changes to that. I will send this to you so that you can use this. This is more updated with all the vendors that we are now aligned with.
Yeah, that's okay.
So again, product OEM mapping. Now, what is an OEM? An OEM means an original equipment manufacturer. Let's say you are using a Apple iPhone. You have bought it from or let's say you're using an Android iPhone. Let's assume Redmi phone. Okay. Now you bought the Redmi phone in probably a mobile store or on Flipkart.com or Amazon.com, and they would have bought it from a distributor, and they would have bought it from actual MI or Redmi company. So that company which actually manufactures is the OEM, is also known as the original equipment manufacturer. All others are resellers or distributors in between. So the Maple Store or Flipkart are not OEMs. The actual manufacturers, not brands, are the OEMs. Okay. So while in each of these, so these are all categories. What you see, the networking routers and switches, Wi-Fi, WAF firewall, SIEM, BAS, all these are categories. And then the logos that you see are the companies. There are more companies that exist, but we have partnership with these companies, okay, in different ways and different forms. So I'll quickly go through this slide so that you can correlate things. We had spoken in our initial devices and components slide that there are something called routers and switches, right? Routers that connect between networks, and switches which aggregate within LANs. Okay, so Huawei, Juniper, and Cisco are our partners. Now there are different cases. We are dedicated Huawei partners. In some cases where the Chinese are not accepted, we use Juniper as the alternative backup option. And in some cases where SAN switches, we had studied about SAN network, storage area network. SAN is something which Huawei does not manufacture, Juniper does not manufacture. Then we go for Cisco. So basically our choices are Huawei. If non-Chinese, then we go with Juniper. And in case of SAN, we go with Cisco, because both the above companies do not manufacture storage area network solutions. So that's on networking. On Wi-Fi, again, Huawei. We are a partner of Huawei again. So anyway, I think most of you know that we are a gold partner of Huawei, reselling most Huawei equipment. So Wi-Fi, again, Huawei comes into picture. There was a wireless company called Ruckus Wireless, which was acquired by CommScope. So it is now CommScope, but yes, brand name is still Ruckus. So that is also an organization. So non-Chinese, you go for Ruckus. If the customer is okay with Huawei, then good to go with Huawei. Then comes the next set of solutions, WAF, Web Application Firewalls. Why is WAF a separate? Actually, WAF itself means the Web Application Firewall. We don't need the word firewall here. But anyway, just for clarifications, I've put this. What is a WAF? Okay. Now, for example, if you have some very specific applications, software development company or a software company, they don't want to secure any hardware or any infrastructure. They just want to make sure their applications are secure. So for example, you use a Twitter app. A Twitter company might have deployed either Radware or something like a Radware, some equivalent competitor of Radware, to secure their Twitter app so that nobody can hack into it or nobody can put malware into it. So application specific firewalls are WAF. Now there are different types of firewalls. We'll talk about them. But then as of now, WAF is just application specific firewall, primarily used by software companies or companies that regularly post apps or update apps. Okay. Now SIEM. Again, SIEM is a very specific application. It stands for security information and event management. Basically, SIEM is an application that you deploy in any company. Let's say Maruti Udyog, let's say Bosch, let's say Volkswagen, let's say Tata Motors, any company, doesn't matter. Let's say Vodafone Idea, let's say Airtel. This application is deployed because it accumulates, analyzes from different parts of the network and gives analytical reports on what is happening, how secure is your network. Okay, but it doesn't test the network, but accumulates data from the network. It monitors the network. Okay, so that is SIEM. Again, I'll repeat: security, information, and event management. Okay, so more of information gathering and showcasing those information by analysis in form of reports. Okay, so very specific companies provide this. Sekion is one of the companies which we have partnered with. Again, BAS, breach and attack simulation. We have partnered with Simulate. Now, these are actually, if you see, these are kind of correlated. This actually finds out and gives all kinds of reports, but this actually does a simulation. I mean, basically, you can use this Simulate to sit inside a Maruti Udyog company's IT network and simulate a cyber attack, or a breach of their network. So that's why they name it as Simulate. But what they do is they simulate a network attack and showcase how vulnerable, how weak, or how strong their network is to external threats. Now, then comes unified communication. What is unified communication? Basically, when you try to collaborate or combine or accumulate, in many different words I'm saying, voice, video, all of that into single form of communications, that is VoIP. Voice over IP or video over IP. All these things are combined into one single form of communications. And today's simple example is IP phones, IP telephony, or video conferencing. So for example, Huawei does all any which ways because we are a partner of Huawei. So we anyway do Huawei, but we're also partners to Polycom. Polycom is now called Poly. They are very famous, one of the world leaders in unified communication solutions. Voice, video, and a lot of other types of content, all of it are combined into one form of communication. Mitel, again, video telephony or voice over IP telephony, you can say. We also had partnered with a company called Grandstream, which I have not mentioned here. These are the VoIP phones or video over IP as well as voice over IP phones that we are using in our offices in Delhi as well as Mumbai. So unified communications is more about video and voice and content combined into one form of communication. Like most likely you can call it as voice over IP, VoIP. Then comes endpoint security. Endpoint security is nothing but the antivirus in your laptop or desktop. Companies which we know are Symantec, McAfee, Quick Heal, Trend Micro. These are the companies. There's also a company called K7. K7 is actually K7. We are also partners to K7, by the way. So that is endpoint security. I'll not go deeper into that. All these firewalls that we have in our own laptops, basic Windows firewalls are also security, but endpoint security are specific secure applications to buy and deploy for even more deeper security. And then comes next generation firewall. Now, before I double click into next generation firewalls, let me brief you that when I said web application firewalls, these are application specific firewalls, right? Next generation firewalls are something like a security gate, which, your security gate, you can use the word actually, a security gate, a lot of intelligence. It also does WAF. It also does DPI. I'll explain that. It also does something called IPS, and it also addresses APTs. What are all these? We know what is a WAF, application-based firewall. DPI is called deep packet inspection, which means any kind of traffic or data that is flowing through, it goes to all levels or as deep as possible, go deeper and find data, read the data, understand whether it is secure or not. Okay, question. Yes, UTM also, but UTM is actually a combination of two of the three things. UTM is not an independent thing, it's a combination of these. We'll talk about UTM later. Good point. And then IPS, IPS, intrusion prevention and security. So that is again like if somebody is intruding your network or your own office network or your setups, IT setups, you use this IPS functionality. And the biggest advantage of having an NG firewall, NG stands for next generation, is awareness of APTs from the outside world. APTs are advanced persistent threats. So this is an expensive solution. If you're enabling APT as a service in your next generation firewall, then it is an extremely expensive solution because APT contains information from the outside world, like the large cyber attacks, like in Syria or in Russia or in Turkey or in US or any countries which have seen really large cyber attacks. The information of those cyber attacks and how you can secure your network from such cyber attacks are defined in APTs. Large attacks that have happened across the world, history of that, and how to avoid that. Those are also deployed in next generation firewalls. Why this is done and who does this? Why this is done? Of course, higher security. Who does this? Extremely large companies like Microsoft, like Google, like Apple, Amazon. These are companies that have huge amount of data and a lot of that data is secure. And if you hack such companies, it is almost like hacking a country, probably more than a country. They have that much amount of information, data about people's places and everything else, right? Google has literally information. If anybody hacks Google, then we are doomed. So Google would have definitely installed all types of APT solutions in their firewalls. So that is why not just countries where attacks should be APTs are deployed by most cyber crime companies like the CIAs, the FBIs in India, the RAWs and ISIs and all these companies like the KGBs. They deploy their APTs in their networks to save their countries from cyber attacks. But organizations also deployed APTs, especially large organizations, to save themselves from such global attacks. I know it's a little bit more now we talk about cloud computing. I think we know now cloud computing is an outsourcing model of our office infra or IT infra. So Alibaba Cloud is what we do. Our priority one, like Vinay said, that's one. And if some customers say that no, Alibaba Cloud is Chinese and we don't want to prefer, then we can always look at NetMagic, as a second option. And then I'll skip cloud computing because we've already spoken about it. Then comes secure access. So secure access is like, it is in today's world, especially after this COVID-19 situation, secure access has become a very, very big thing across the world. So companies like Pulse Secure, HP's company called Aruba, then Cisco, these three are the market leaders in secure access. Now there are two types of secure access. One is called SSL VPN and one is called NAC, a network access control. Network access control is that you sit inside your office and you connect your office intranet. So that is like local. But SSL VPN, where a secure socket layer or a tunnel is created to connect a virtual private network. That's why it's called SSL VPN. I'll also write it down here, SSL VPN, right? This is an application or a solution given by these companies, Pulse Secure, HP, Aruba, Cisco, where you can sit at home and remotely, using the internet, create a private tunnel to access your company's intranet. Okay, we spoke about intranet, which is a closed network of a company. But if you have to connect it from outside, then you use a secure access, which is why this topic is called secure access, using SSL VPN to access that network or application or whatever it is. It could be SAP, it could be anything that your office premises have. It could be a secure info portal or a secure Dollybar portal or anything it is. Okay, so this is pretty much simple. I don't think it's too complicated. And some of you might have experienced a VPN kind of a application in your laptops in your previous organizations where you use it and then you are onto your company LAN and then you can log in and check your company's resources or information. Okay, so we move next. The other set of OEMs. Now, while Vinay was mentioning that this is an order of hierarchy, but it could also be an order of no competition. Okay, in software solutions, like I'm showing you here, Systiplant. Systiplant is we are exclusive partners of Systiplant for Middle East, Asia, Asia Pacific for Industry 4.0 solutions. I will not double click too much into it, but it is majorly a software suite that you use in the manufacturing sector. Some of you on this call know that, and I think let's keep like that. Again, Microsoft. We are a Microsoft Silver partner, and we do sell some Microsoft software solutions rather. And the third one, which is most interesting one, is our own Indovision HRMS, our own iHRMS. That is also a software suite that we can literally sell in the public. And right now we have a few customers who are already using. Some customers are inbound customers like Vodafone, Samsung, and some are outbound customers where they've actually sold it as a separate application to some customers that they are using it. Okay. Then come passive components. Now, when we spoke about devices and components in my previous slides, we had spoken about copper, fiber, fiber optical cables, twisted pair, untwisted pair cables, and all those stuff, right? So our choice for doing anything in fiber is PDR. PDR is an Indian company that manufactures all fiber optical products like patch cords, cables, connectors, all these things. Again, AMP NetConnect, which is acquired by CommScope, is a company that manufactures fiber as well as copper, but we prefer this company for copper only. And if this is not there, then the third is D-Link, which provides all sorts of copper. So PDR for fiber, AMP NetConnect for fiber as well as copper, and D-Link for copper, like that. So if you need to buy LAN cable to connect between two locations or one server and one laptop or whatever, or between switches and all that, we look at either AMP NetConnect or D-Link. So why they are called passive components is because they are not intelligent devices. The active components are our laptops, desktops, servers, storage. They are all active components. Passive are the ones that connect these devices, right? And then coming to server, storage, UPS. Again, our first choice for all three is Huawei. UPS also includes batteries, by the way. And if, again, like Vinay said, if there is a public sector RFP or a GEM portal, GEM tender or whatever, then if Chinese are not accepted, then we go for Dell as a solution. Dell does not do UPS, but Dell does do server storage. I'll come to application delivery in the end. Okay, we'll talk about this little later. Then I jump into CCTV. Again, our choice to sell is Huawei. Huawei is a Chinese brand, we all know, so I'll skip Huawei. And then CP Plus, an Indian company, Hikvision, again another Chinese company. We have partnered in different ways and forms with these companies to provide specific solutions in our previous engagements. Hence, we have this in our order of priority. In workstations, we do Dell. While we can always do, we have till now done workstations, only Dell workstations, but we can also look at Lenovo as an option, which was mentioned if needed, or if Huawei does, then Huawei as an option. As of now, I'll rub them because workstations, like we discussed before, are nothing but super fast, heavy graphics and heavy processing computers, desktops, right? Those are workstations. Especially you use in monitoring systems, in stadiums, in control rooms and all this. Now, then I start talking about virtualization. If you remember, right, we spoke about virtualization. You use software to intelligently use hardware. Red Hat, we are a training sales partner. We sell their training. VMware, we are a proper reselling partner. In fact, we are the second level now. We are a professional, reselling partner and a subscription selling partner. ACOPS is similar to Red Hat and VMware. They're all virtualization companies, but ACOPS is an Indian company. American, and Indian. We do training sales, we do product sales, and this is if there is a lot of Make in India campaign that goes in many tenders. If some customers require Indian solutions, then we have ACOPS. Of course, it is cheaper also. Acronis is again another virtualization but this is virtualization for storage and backup, not for server virtualization, but storage and backup virtualization. I think this information is enough. We don't need to double click into it. And then I'll now come back to application delivery. What is application delivery? If you read the two words, application delivery, delivering applications. Okay. Let's say, let's take, I'm just opening up my phone to see what kind of app I can. Okay, Microsoft Outlook mobile app. Okay, I'm just taking a random application. This mobile app needs to be delivered. It needs to be safe. It needs to be secure. It needs to be lightning fast. It needs to be, it should not hang. So many requirements we have on our mobile phones, on our laptops, when we use applications, that those applications should perform the best in terms of their availability, in terms of their usage, functionality, hanging issues, no hanging issues rather, all these things. So there are companies like F5, A10, and there are a few other companies also, they do it. Those companies actually provide application delivery controllers or ADC solutions, or you also call it as application delivery network solution. What they do is any application specific. If you want to, like we have web application firewall in the previous slide we spoke about. WAF secures web applications. Application delivery ensures that these applications are delivered in best available time, which means there are no hanging issues, by caching, by compression and optimization techniques. Now, why it is done? For example, let's say YouTube as an application. There is some Narendra Modi video that where that came up at 10 a.m. in the morning, and some 1,000 people in Mumbai's campus in one colony are viewing that video at the same time. Or probably an hour later, 10 o'clock the video came, and at 11 o'clock, 1,000 people are watching that video. Or maybe at 12 o'clock, another 500 people are watching that video. What will happen is, copy of that whole video is actually made and copied into any nearby box, an application delivery box near to that colony or near to that city, so that every single time, every user does not go to the Delhi server to reach and come back with a lot of delay in running that application or that video, as well as using or occupying the whole bandwidth. Imagine 100 users or 1,000 users watching the same video from using the Delhi server, and each is using a 1 Mbps connection. So 1,000 Mbps of data or connections are used at the same time. Rather than that, you can have that video copied into a ADC box, an application delivery box, let's say in Mumbai itself, and all these 1,000 users use 1,000 connections only till that box. From that box, there is only a single connection till the Delhi server. So that is called caching. So one of the applications of this application delivery is called caching. It also does something called WAN optimization, where it optimizes the bandwidth or the usage of the networks. Many other applications, but more importantly, it is to enhance, it is to ensure the applications are delivered in real time with no delay, with maximum security, and best possible, speed. I'll take a pause because this is a little difficult topic. I'll take a pause, a longer pause, and see if you have any questions or if you have any discussions or observations on this topic. Or are we clear?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sanjay sir, इसमें virtualization में if we talk about the Red Hat or VMware, any compatibility issue आता है कोई iOS के साथ और any Linux के साथ? जैसे Red Hat तो सिर्फ Linux पे I think working है.
So, okay, good question. See, compatibility issues do come.
Okay.
Compatibility issues definitely come. They are all case-to-case basis. कि आपने अभी अगर if you are deploying new, okay, there are two types of deployments, either a greenfield or a brownfield. Greenfield मतलब new deploy कर रहे हो, तो आप deploy वही करोगे जो आपको पता है किसके साथ चलता है, right? वही
Okay.
plan करोगे, वही deploy करोगे. Let's say already एक deployed network है जिसमें multiple virtualization करके रखा हुआ है अलग-अलग तरीके के. कहीं
Right.
Linux भी है, कहीं Windows भी है, and all that, right?
Right.
Then compatibility issues come, but there is scripting that can be used to overcome that compatibility and make it compatible.
Okay.
Okay, so there are specific or specialized services companies who do configurational changes or even scriptural level changes to make sure that compatibility works. And then once that is done, let's say Windows 98 को Red Hat के साथ compatible कर दिया. Then from the next use case of Red Hat with any other customer, they can always say that Windows 98 compatible. So we'll move further. Now we jump into tada, data center. This is what a data center, a sample data center looks like. You would have heard this word many times. Some of you might have visited data centers. Some of you might have seen similar pictures, and some of you might have only heard about data centers. So, in most companies, there are rooms called server rooms. But in data centers, server rooms is their business, nothing else. So this is their primary business in data centers. Now, if you see this diagram, you see all these nice little rectangular boxes. These are called racks. We had discussed in the components, devices and components in my initial presentation. Okay. And then if you see, there are some cables going. If you are able to see my red colored, linings that I'm adding, there are cables going. These are cables. These are probably servers. I'm assuming these must be servers. Some of them could be, some are empty racks, some are empty racks with some more space. You also see some boxes which have some yellow color cables going on. They are called cable assembly boxes or trays. Even these floored boxes that you see, the tiles that you see, they are actually raised floor. So if you take out a tile, you will see at least 4 to 5 feet or at least 3 to 5 feet of empty space where all these power cables to these equipment actually come down from. They all come from downwards and they power the equipment. So most power cables in most data centers are coming from bottom, and LAN cables like copper and fiber cables are either using the raised floor area, or they're also using these cable assemblies where yellow color cables that you see are actually fiber cables. Okay, so you can have them overhead. In most cases, power is used under the racks and cables are used above the racks. It can be vice versa depending on the positioning of the data center. And you can also see in the top some air conditioning vents, AC vents where they are passing on air conditioning, something like that. So this is just a general picture of a data center where some of the things that you are seeing. Now I'll go and showcase what are all in a data center. Avoid this picture for the moment, because as and when I go further down, we know racks. We saw what racks are just in the previous slide. We know what a cable assembly is. A box, like we saw in the previous slide, these boxes, these light gray color boxes in which you lay these fiber cables, they are cable assembly boxes. Or even you can also call some of cable assemblies are known as trays, cable trays, which is a very famous term used, cable trays. Cable assemblies are either boxes for fiber or trays for cable, fiber or copper or even power. Okay, cable trays. And then cables itself, we spoke about the cable assemblies and cable trays, but cables also, copper in case of power cables, as well as twisted pair cables, LAN cables, and then fiber, of course, optical fiber cables. Power, UPS, batteries, backup generators, and all these things, right? These are all the power components in a data center. Cooling, HVACs, airflow systems, air vent systems, and all these. Those are all the cooling systems. Again, then servers or server farms. Now you can start correlating with the right side diagram. If you see, there is a server farm. This is a server farm. Server farm is nothing but too many servers or a lot of servers clustered into one location. You saw that in my previous picture, there were a lot of servers kept one upon the other, stacked above each other. That is nothing but a server farm. So servers or server farms is a common terminology used in a data center. Now, when I said about cables, copper and fiber, they are nothing but these black lines that are connecting these boxes, these black lines, these black lines, these green lines, they're all nothing but the cables, either copper or fiber. Okay, so after servers, server farms, then comes storage. Again, storage, lot of hard disks or solid state drives or NVMe hard disks. So new different types of hard disks are there, HDD, SSD, NVMe. You can always Google and find out more and more. I will not waste time on that. So storage, and then routers. I mean, you can probably say these could be routers or switches depending on the solution deployed. These are switches. These are all switches. These are also switches. These are also switches, which is the next one. So routers and switches. It depends on whether you have the core layer in routing or switching, the distribution layer in routing or switching, and access layer in routing and switching. Most of the times, this is the switching layer. This is the switching layer. This could be sometimes a routing layer or a switching layer, depending on the deployment or the architecture of that data center. Or you could still have a switching layer, and then above that there will be a routing layer above that. This could be, and then connecting to the other data centers or other locations. That could also be there. Then firewalls. If you see firewalls, where they are deployed, just near the aggregation boxes. Okay. This could be NG firewalls from Juniper, from Fortinet, or any such companies, right? So if you see, we can actually note down in Huawei, Cisco, Juniper. In switches, it is again Huawei, Juniper, Cisco, Dell, HP, and so many companies. In firewall, like we had mentioned, Juniper, Fortinet. There are many companies called Checkpoint. Even Cisco makes, etc. etc. So, and then we move to the next, application delivery nodes. Like I said in my previous slide, application delivery nodes do a lot of things. They also do a lot of load balancing. If you see this box, this is a server load balancer. The word server load balancer actually explains everything. It balances the load on each of the server in the server farms in simple logic. So anytime, any amount of traffic that is coming, this server load balancer will actually balance out so that none of the servers are sitting idle and none of the servers are overloaded. So server load balancer is a very simple, application of, the application delivery nodes. This is another. It could be a cache node, like I told you about a Narendra Modi video. People can use this location, and that can be copied here and pasted, so that people can start using from here rather than using thousands of connections to the actual server where it is loaded in Delhi. Delivery nodes, you can see here, these are application delivery nodes. These are firewalls, routers and switches, you can see, and a lot of software. For example, virtualization. You see here virtual machines. So all these servers will be used by any remote customer like us, using their data centers network or using that cloud. How they are used? They are used by virtualized way of usage. In simple words, again, in these servers, each of the server is partitioned into multiple servers, multiple machines or multiple compute devices, and that compute is provided as a service to different customers. We could be one of those customers. I will take a pause here. This was a little too heavy. I will take a pause here, wait for questions. Any questions? Can we make our own DC to provide service of cloud? Of course we can make. It needs a huge amount of investment and a big selling team so that we can make a data center. It costs crores and crores of rupees to make a data center. It's called vision. Yes, you need to have a vision to create a data center. So the latest data center company that we know in India that is coming up is Yota. They're building the country's largest data center in Navi Mumbai, Panvel, and they have that vision. So like Rajiv said, it's called vision. They have that vision, they're doing it. Vivek Pathak, good question. I still have to answer your internet question and I'll come to that point. So these are data center components. So we move. Can I get some yeses, or if you have any questions, please ask. But the answer to Vivek's question is yes, anybody can make a DC, own DC and provide service of cloud. Money and vision and infrastructure and people and customers, all these are required. So it takes an army to build and run data centers. Okay, so we get some yeses and we move. All right, then we go to campus area networks. What's a campus network? Okay, interesting. You see this diagram, it's actually self-explanatory to a good extent. This looks like a campus, different buildings. You connect to internet from here to from two places. Okay, there is a message. Can Indovision think to start cloud do DC business as OEM? Supervision. Can Indovision think to start cloud or DC business as OEM? No, I think I think the question itself is broken into two pieces which cannot be connected. We cannot be an OEM because OEM stands for an original equipment manufacturer. So we are not a manufacturer, first of all. So we should take that out from the question. So I will break that question into, can Indovision think to start cloud or DC? That is exactly what Vivek Pathak also asked. And the answer continues to remain the same, that yes, we can always think. If your question is, can Indovision think? Yes, we can think. Can we give? Okay, that's the next question. DC cloud services. They are already reselling cloud services of Alibaba Cloud to customers. If we have to build a cloud, it will take a hell of a lot of tasks, years to build and run it. So by installing hardware of Huawei, very good. Again, I think the answer for that is vision and supervision. That is the blunt answer to that. Can we give? Yes, we can give. It needs a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of people, and a lot of customers. We can do. Anybody can do. Right, sir? Okay. So you can see a nice campus network. It looks like a nice campus which has, this probably looks like a an institute where there is a central, probably this is an office site, central office. This is probably some some hall This is probably a guest house. This is probably a I don't know, some gym or some a play area. These are some cottages. This looks to be some community hall. All these are different buildings and they're all connected. Like we see here on wireless, we can see that there are antennas and modems which we are giving wireless connectivity. So this is just a sample view of a campus network. Okay, we have a message. Yes, we can be the cloud provider if we have a vision to compete with AWS, Alibaba, Yota. Okay, so the point is vision. If you have this, you can have all of it. Anyway, okay, good one. So again, campus network. So it's also called as a corporate area network. It's also called as a campus area network. It's also called as a controller area network. It's also known as a campus network without area word in the middle. So different terminologies. Basically, we call it as CAN, campus area network, controller area network, corporate area network. It could be a university campus. It could be an organizational campus. It could be a Google campus. It could be an AIMS campus. It could be an IIT campus. It can be anything. I'll use the same diagram into the next picture, but I will make it a little smaller and then try and explain the components of campus network. I have skipped the word area and I've made it campus network. First, there must be a central site or a control room or an IT room, assuming this is that site, a central site. Okay, what is this site? This is nothing but a mini data center itself. A data center has hundreds and hundreds of racks and sometimes even thousands of servers. A campus control room or a central site will not have so much. Probably will have 4 to 6 racks, few servers, few storage, some switches, may or may not be routers, some of the components of a data center. So you can call it as a mini data center itself, the central room or the control room of a campus network. What is next? The other buildings. All the other buildings other than this circled building are nothing but the remote sites. So if you use central site as a term, you use remote site as another term. If you use control room, then other buildings or main building and other buildings. These are different terminologies used, simple English terminologies used. Okay? What are these locations? They are nothing but LAN setups. If you remember, we had discussed LAN, MAN, and WAN. LAN is a local area network within a building, most likely. So this is a LAN within itself. 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 So LAN is mostly LAN is a single building network or a single area network. And then we spoke about MAN, metropolitan area network, which is much bigger, right? And then we talk about much larger country level networks and all that. Will not WAN, which is wide area network and all. So the CAN is well positioned between LAN, local area network, and metropolitan area network. They're smaller than a city network, but much larger than a building network. So basically, a campus network is a combination of multiple LANs. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 LANs connected to the central site, something like this. Wired setups. Now, it depends on the okay. I'll between buildings on fiber and wireless setups between buildings on Wi-Fi. I've mentioned down both these two because most of the times it depends on the size of the campus. If the campus is huge, let's say an IIT campus, I don't know whether it is IIT Powai or IIT Kharagpur, any IIT campus, where the building, each of the buildings is 500 meters, 300 meters, 1 kilometer away from each other, like huge campus with buildings very, very far from each other. You can't reach between buildings using Wi-Fi. Then most of the times in older days, they used to connect using copper. But in today's world, since 2005 or 2000, 2005, 2010, all these campuses are connected using fiber. But only when distances are too high. But when the distances are less and when the buildings are right next to each other and smaller areas, then you use wireless setups. You have a wireless controller and wireless access points, and then you have a complete Wi-Fi setup, like we discussed about a Wi-Fi network also, right? WLAN, wireless local area network. So you use WLAN as a technology or as a deployment inside a campus network. So this diagram that you see, if I remove all these diagram that you see, is actually using, it has a control room, it has other LAN setups, looks like it is using wireless setup because it does not have buildings which are very fast. You just cross the road and buildings are next to each other. So that's why it is using wireless setups. Then we move to, okay, even within buildings, if there are multiple floors, you will have small access points which give even deeper coverage. If you recollect the word called repeater, which extends your reach, these in-building Wi-Fi solutions are used to amplify or extrapolate your signal or make your signal strong again to reach to that last end point of the building, corner of the building, or the center point of the building. Maybe there is a -1, -2, -3, 3 floors downwards, in the basement. You use repeaters to go, go deeper and deeper. So there are in-building Wi-Fi solutions to go even deeper within the building, to get enhanced wireless coverage. Unified communication suite. Again, we spoke about companies like Polycom, Huawei, Cisco, Mitel, where you have video conferencing, voice over IP, instant messaging like Microsoft Link or proprietary solutions, intranet emails, fax solutions, all of that with a single centralized, or I would rather say a unified communication suite. These are the companies that provide these suite where you get all of these applications together in one package, which is deployed, of course, deployed here, but used by all users on their laptops, on their desktops, or some even on their mobile phones. Okay, and then, of course, the advantages of having a campus network is you have a common internet connection. This could be primary, this could be backup, something like that. But one single internet connection for probably 500 users in this campus, or 1,000, 2,000 users in this campus, rather than all of them having separate internet connections. So this is the biggest advantage of having a campus network, where you have one network connection supporting all the users within the campus. Of course, intranet setups if needed. We spoke about intranet in our first slide. Internet is a closed network, not accessible outside. So this campus could be set up as a single intranet where only the users inside can connect to their internet setup. Or if there is another branch of this, say let's say this is a Google campus and there is another Google campus here, they also have the same intranet. Then there is a VPN created between these two locations, and then there's an intranet here, there's an intranet here. Or you can even go to the level of having intranet inside intranets, where you have an intranet within this building itself, or an intranet within this building itself, depending on usage, how private you want to use your networks within your teams or within your departments. You can probably have, for example, Tally is an intranet even inside our own intranet. If let's say Indovision is an intranet, our Tally usage of our account is an intranet within our intranet, something like that. I'll take a hard stop here. I will again ask questions if you have to. Please, people. Have we delivered campus network solutions to anyone? I know the answer, but I will let Rajiv or Vinay to answer. We can unmute and talk now, guys. I think the slide is over, so we can unmute and talk. CT University, Punjab. Yeah. And OEM was Huawei, right? Yeah. So now, now that I have gone through what a data center network looks like, what are the components, what a campus network looks like, what are the components, and we have gone through the types of different companies who provide these components, it is easy to correlate that if I say, so you can imagine in your own minds or from this slide deck itself that If somebody says there is a unified communication suite required for a campus, you know which are the manufacturers we have to talk to. Wireless setups, we know who to talk to. For an internet connection, we anyway know whom to talk to. For wired setups, fiber setups, you know that fiber means you need fiber cables and all that. So passive vendors, who are the passive vendors? It's there in the list. So any solution that is required in a campus network or in a data center, you know, anything, switches, routers, servers, power, cooling. I can easily mention here that for cables in copper and fiber, we can look at PDR or AMP Net Connect or D-Link. For servers, we can look at Huawei or Dell. For switches, we can look at Huawei, Juniper, Cisco, Dell, HP, all of these. We have, of course, our own priority of OEMs, which is mentioned in the previous slides. This is our priority of OEMs that we sell. But yes, we can literally choose all the components of a data center or a campus network or any other network for that matter. These are the two complex networks which have most equipments coming in, data centers and campus networks. The only one which we have not done is a telecom network, which has all of it, but beyond this, it also has a few more, like optical network systems and other things. So, which we anyway don't do. So we are not addressing service providers or telecom companies with those solutions. So that's about it. That brings me to the end of my presentation.